While others scrambled in the transfer portal, Ohio State stayed patient, struck with purpose, and upgraded the roster.
You are Locked On Buckeyes, your daily podcast on the Ohio State Buckeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in, Buckeye fans, to your Monday edition of Locked On Buckeyes, which is your daily Ohio State podcast, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now the number one sports podcast network. I'm your host, Jay Stevens, veteran sports talk host, delivering passionate coverage about your Buckeyes. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boosts every game day. During today's show, we will discuss if the Buckeyes are done snagging players out of the portal, as well as if we are satisfied with the Buckeyes' plan for long-term dominance. But first, one thing when I think about Ohio State's use of the portal right now is that I am very satisfied with how Ryan Day has used it this year. It was very clear early on that the Buckeyes are going to lose a lot of players in the portal this year. They lost 31 scholarship players in the transfer portal, which is closed, which is a very good thing because that number could have kept going up if the portal were open for 3 or 4 more days. But you lose 31 scholarship players, and you may think, man, that's a major blow. Will the Buckeyes be fine losing that many players? Well, outside of Tegler Shabola, you didn't lose a starter to the portal. Now, you lost some guys to the NFL draft that declared early, and you lost some other guys that exhausted their eligibility, but those departures were expected. Even Tegler Shabola's departure, some could say, was expected too. But the Buckeyes to lose 31 scholarship players and to bring in 16 guys total, one of them being a walk-on, a long snapper that was the latest player to transfer to the Buckeyes. You got to be satisfied with the Buckeyes' plan for success in 2026. And it all starts with getting some guys up front on the interior in Qua Russaw and James Smith, also John Walker. All three of those guys are on the defensive line, and they're going to have a chance to play. When I look at other guys Ohio State brought in right now, and Mason Williams from Ohio, and Christian Allegro from Wisconsin, Earl Little Jr. from Florida State, Terry Moore from Duke, and there are other guys that the Buckeyes brought in that are going to have a chance to play right away. And when you lose that many guys, the 31 scholarship players, it's easy for you to say, oh, the Buckeyes aren't going to be good this year. They're going to be good, but they might not accomplish their goals. But if you can replace those guys that were inexperienced with experienced guys, and one of them that was declared for the NFL draft and decided to come back to college, you're seeing the Buckeyes plan to bring in veteran players to replace inexperienced players to play this year. Now, I don't know if this is a plan for the future, but I think it's a great plan right now. I think not only did Indiana do it, but you can even see Miami be having older players at key positions, and that's going to be a formula for success for those two teams that are playing in the national championship tonight. And you're going to see other schools go out there and have a similar plan. Now, I don't know if you're going to spend the money that Miami did on the trenches and even on the quarterback. You may be able to try to use your money elsewhere, but the thought is the same. Try to add more players to your roster that have experience playing college football. Because you know how it is. You go to the YMCA on a Saturday afternoon, you and your boys trying to play some pickup basketball, and it's that one old head out there wearing the high socks, got the headband on, the shorts a little bit high, and the length of them is more the length of your drawers. And you're like, man, I don't want that dude on my team. Next thing you know, you got to have him because you got to have 5 to play in the pickup game. He's on your team. You're like, oh, no, I need that guy. The old school man, the old guy at the YMCA, he knows all the old school moves. He's very fundamentally sound. We call him a Tim Duncan, but more of the local variety of a Tim Duncan, not a pro, not a Hall of Fame caliber kind of player. But you know the old man at the YMCA has those moves that you can't stop. It looks very simple. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to see the moves and the motion that he has on the court. But when he's out there, you can't stop him. You want him on your team because nobody on the other team can stop him either. And you start to win. You win more and more and more. And right when you think you can't go anymore, you start to get tired. He gets a second win. You're like, man, how do you keep going? It's tricks of the trade, man. I'm doing this for a while. I know how to outsmart some of you youngins. Well, that's how it's going to be in college football. And now it could be a cycle where you get some of the older guys to be a part of your team when the portal is open, or it could be something that just stays where a cycle it's you get old heads every now and then all of a sudden you go back to trying to get young players and build through the high school level. I do think, though, for the short-term success, especially next year, when you keep a lot of your key guys on offense, the Buckeyes offensive line is one position that they don't have any additions through the portal right now, or at least so far at the time of this recording, which is a little odd to some, but there's a scenario where 4 of the 5 starters next year were already on the roster and starters from the previous season, and then one guy, Ian Moore, could start next year. He didn't start at all. He would start his first game. If he starts next year at left tackle or maybe even right tackle, that first start would be next season. And so, maybe second start. I think he did fill in for Phillip Daniels this year. But you have to be satisfied with what Ryan Day has done so far, especially when things are changing. And at one point, there were 4,000 FBS players in the portal. Let that sink in for you. Now, I don't know the number right now, but I know at one point, there were 4,000 players in the portal. And this was shortly before the portal closed. And for Ryan Day and Ohio State to go out there and to find not just the guys I mentioned earlier, but to find a Hunter Welsing from Northwestern and a Justin Martin from Maryland, who's going to be a depth piece at quarterback, is going to help the growth of Tavian St. Clair and the growth and development of Julian Sand, adding Kyle Parker from LSU and Jacoby Jackson from Florida, who also spent time at a community college. You got to be very satisfied when Ryan Day is able to sift through all the players, watch all the film to realize this one guy is what we need. Now, and that is a true skill. To have a pool of 4 or 5, maybe even 6,000 players at one time and say, well, this is a guy we need. Are you sure? Because there's so many other players at that same position at power conference schools that could fill that role. But Ryan Day realizes this is the guy. Now you have to have you have the eye for talent. You must be able to not only have the eye for talent, fine-tune and sharpen your ability to evaluate talent, because you may have an eye for good talent, but will that talent be good at Ohio State? That's a different conversation. Because that guy may be good at Northwestern, or he may be good at Maryland. Will he be good at Ohio State? That's literally to be determined. You will not know until you get him on the practice field, but you are projecting that, hey, we're going to bring him in, maybe not play him right away, maybe use him more as a depth piece in Camp Calhoun from Alabama. And when you do that, cool. You get to see what he's made of as soon as he gets on campus, and then you get to see if he can be a part of you down the road. Calhoun's an interesting one because he was recruited by Ohio State. He was on an unofficial visit to the Buckeyes, actually for the game, when he committed to Michigan. And so the Buckeyes already had an upper hand, and they already had a good feel about him as a player. But for this year, bringing that guy in, making sure you are dotting every I and crossing every T before you bring him in for a visit and you accept his transfer, you got to feel pretty good about where Ohio State sits with, they lost a lot of guys, but they brought in quality veteran players to replace those departures. You add in the 28 incoming freshmen, you got to feel pretty good about where Ohio State sits about them trying to accomplish their goals in 2026. Did the Buckeyes plan for the portal in 2026 set them up for long-term dominance? We'll tackle that after the break. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The college football playoff is here, and FanDuel is giving all customers even more ways to get in on the action every single game day of the playoffs. Because right now, every college football playoff game day, FanDuel users get a profit boost waiting for them in the app. Here's what I love about it. You get to use the profit boost on the bets you already feel good about. Ride with the favorite when you think a team controls the matchup. Take a shot on the underdog if you feel an upset coming, or build a parlay around the players and moments you think decide the game. Then you apply the profit boost and go after even bigger winnings. And when you win, FanDuel pays out instantly, which is perfect for playoff football. FanDuel is the best place to get into the action all playoff long. So visit FanDuel.com to get your college football playoff profit boosts every game day. Thank you for making Locked On Buckeyes your first listen of the day. And thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayer Club. You'll be able to get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Buckeyes, compatible with Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and every other major podcast app. An invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which is a big group chat for us Buckeye fans because this includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. Go to lockedonbuckeyes.supercast.com or tap the link in the show notes to learn more. Ryan Day's path in the portal this year was a little interesting because you got to see a lot of guys depart as soon as the portal opened, and one of them showed his intention to enter the portal as soon as the Buckeyes lost to Miami and Jelani Thurman. A couple weeks before that, Bryson Rogers discussed his intention to go to the portal as well. We're losing guys like Bryce West and C.J. Hicks and Sam Dixon and Jackson Corporal, who would have been your #1 kicker this year. You add in Aaron Scott Jr., Mylan Graham, Quincy Porter. A lot of those guys are young players that the Buckeyes had big plans for us in the future, and they decided this is the time for them to go play at North Carolina and USF and Notre Dame, among some of the other schools the Buckeyes are now going to go play for. And it makes me wonder if the Buckeyes playing this year will set them up for long-term dominance. Not just success, dominance. That's what you want. If you look back over the past 25 years of college football, the Buckeyes have been one of the most dominant teams in the sport. I say one of because if you take Alabama out of the equation, it's hard to find another team that's been as dominant as Ohio State. You could even say that Ohio State was more dominant than Alabama. Yes, Alabama has more national championship trips to the game and wins, but before Saban got there, Alabama was not what they have been since. And the expectations that Kalen DeBoer is feeling right now and having to try to attain, those things weren't the same when before Nick Saban got there. There was some really odd years. They weren't as strong of a team as they are currently. And so I don't think when it comes to pre-Nick Saban, you could say, well, yeah, Ohio State was more dominant. They won a natty. They went to at least one more. I don't know if they went to two more since when Saban wasn't there. I know they went to at least one more. There's an argument to be made that the most dominant program in the sport over the past 25 years is Ohio State. But that's the past. The present is NIL, the portal, player movement being at a pace that is hard for coaches to manage a roster. And when it makes it hard for a coach to manage a roster, a coach may want to keep some of these guys. But I think when you try to get veteran players to fill those spots, it sets you up short term. But long term, you want to try to get some of those guys to stick around. Maybe it's money that they're trying to find, or maybe it's a guaranteed spot to start down the road. But you want to get a good mix of veteran players out of the portal and guys you're recruiting that are there for 3 to 5 years. Some may be there for only 3 years, like Jeremiah Smith. That's rare. Paris Johnson Jr. was there for 3 years. You get guys that are only at a school for 3 years because they are that good. That's also great. But you also have to realize you gotta still get a mix. Because if you're constantly going to the portal, you could be like Miami right now, where they don't have a quarterback, at least a starting caliber quarterback for next year. Carson Beck is done playing college football after the game tonight. Miami, will they go after Dylan Raiola? Maybe. I honestly think that would be a wise choice, at least trying to go after him. But is Dylan Raiola a guy you think could go down to Miami and rise to an elite level? I don't know. You have to kick the tires on it. Dante Moore is staying, and while he can't transfer anymore because he's out of the portal, he's already at another school. That makes it more interesting now, and I put that out there because originally last week, and I thought about this, I thought about Miami going after Dylan Raiola once Dante Moore decided to stay. However, Dylan Raiola can't go back to the portal because the portal's closed. So Miami's in a weird spot right now. I don't know what they're going to do at quarterback for next year. Maybe they have a plan that hasn't been put into place yet, but we're going to see. We're going to see what's going to happen, but you have to have a good mix. You have to, because I don't think Ryan Day wants to keep having the same conversation with these players and have this result being you're going to the portal. James Peoples, Devontae Armstrong, I get because he really wasn't. I never saw a clear path to play over the next couple of years, maybe in 2 years, but this year he wasn't going to be a consistent starter. With the way the Buckeyes O-line recruiting is expected to go, you're probably going to get more firepower from younger guys that are able to play quicker than normal. Because on the O-line, at least the way I view it, I've always viewed the offensive line as a position where by year 3, you should be able to play. If you're able to start in year 2, that's a huge, massive benefit. Year 1, you're just there developing, man. You're probably not going to play very much. If you do, it's a massive blowout, and that's okay. It's a position that is full of long-term development and growth. Year 2, a little bit better. You might be in the 2 deep. If you're not the 2 deep, that's also okay. But by year 3, you should be expected to play, or you should be a guy that's at least in your 2 deep. In year 4, you're a starter. It's weird, man. The O-line is one of the weirdest positions in the sport. Because D-line, yeah, you can move up a little bit, but you're not trying to work with 5 guys or 4 other guys with a quarterback, with a running back at the same time. I mean, you're not trying to do that. So Devontae Armstrong's one of them where you're losing a young guy, but you're comfortable losing him. Demarion Witten, you're comfortable losing him. You're even comfortable losing Aaron Scott, Marlon Graham, Tegra, Shabola, Justin Terry, Quincy Porter. All those guys kind of hit the portal in a row. So it's bam, 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 bam. For long-term dominance, you have to have a good mix of veteran players and guys recruit out of high school. And I think that's why last year's team worked so well with the 2024 team, the one that won the national championship. Yeah, you brought in Quinshon Judkins and Will Howard, Caleb Downs. You brought in some of these guys from the portal, but also what else did you have? Lathan Ransom, Jack Sawyer, Jalen Toy-Maloa. You got these guys that have been there for a long time so that when they came in, even including Lorenzo Styles, who transferred in from Notre Dame, when those guys come in, they're not trying to create the culture. They're trying to accept the culture, absorb the culture, and be the best they can be while being on Ohio State's team. The plan for long-term dominance, it's a good one if there's a great mix. If you don't get a good mix, if you lean into the portal too much, you could have problems. You probably will have more problems than you'll like. If you lean into the high school recruiting a little bit more than others, you will also have problems. You have to have a good mix of the two. And Ryan Day's done such a great job of adapting to the changes to this sport. I would be shocked if he didn't adjust to this one over the next few years, because his track record shows us when it comes to hiring coaches, when it comes to the portal, when it comes to playoff expansion, as it sure seems like that's going to happen down the road. Right as it stands right now, last I heard, the Big Ten is looking for a 24-team playoff. The SEC is wanting a 16-team playoff. There's a good chance we get a 12-team playoff next year, which I think between those 3 options, the 12-team playoff is the best one for this sport. Speaking of the best one for the sport, will the Buckeyes go to the portal to get more help in 2026? I'll answer that question after the break. This episode is brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert, start to finish, without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employed forms and work to get you every deduction. You can upload your documents, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file you last year, just file by February 28th. take taxes off your plate, and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. One thing we know about Ohio State is they've been very strategic, sometimes patient, and very aggressive with their moves in the portal in 2026. While the portal is closed right now, there are still a lot of players in the portal, and some of them might be players the Buckeyes might be trying to go after. Then you add in the fact that IU and Miami players have an extra 5 days to hit the portal after the national championship game is played tonight. Those are other players that Ohio State is probably considering going after. You're on the national championship winning team or just team playing in the Natty. That's an added boost and bonus for you. But also, those guys are really good. Big Ten players, ACC players on the roster that is one of the better ones in the country on those two squads. Of course, it would be expected for Ryan Day to go out there and try to get more guys. The bigger question is not will he go out there and try to entertain more players? What position should he go after? And I think it's kind of obvious to me when look at a couple positions. The Buckeyes can easily afford to go out there and get another kicker. They only have one kicker on the roster right now. You lose Jaden Fielding and Jackson Corville. Fielding has exhausted his eligibility. Jackson Corville went back into the portal, which is a little odd to me. I truly wonder what was going on behind closed doors, because when your backup kicker was raved about before he transferred to Ohio State and he didn't see the field once, why? Even if it's just for field goals, you will think at some point when your kicker showed that he wasn't the best under pressure, you might try somebody else in that spot. You could have just put him on kickoff to keep him mentally and physically engaged with the team, but no. Homie didn't touch the field once. I understand why Jackson Corville decided to go back to the portal, but also the Buckeyes need another kicker. Go to the portal and get one. Offensive line is one where I could see them adding one guy. Maybe there's a guy on IU or Miami that's an instant starter and you just want to go out there and get him right away. If that's the case, great. Go out there and do it. But you're trying to build more depth when it comes to offensive line, not trying to go out there and get a guy that can start right now. Running back, they're fine. Receiver, not really worried about it. Like I said, another depth piece. If you get a depth piece out of the portal as a receiver right now, great. But is it a huge need? Not really. When you bring in Kyle Parker and Devin McEwen as well, two guys that can be depth pieces for Ohio State. You add in Chris Henry Jr. I think your top four, maybe even top five are solidified. You can use some more experience in that room. Tight end, they're absolutely fine. They currently have 7 tight ends on the room. If they use more than 12 personnel next year on a consistent basis, you're going to hear me on this show going crazy, because that would be very stupid. We saw too much 13 and 14 personnel this season. Trying to see that again next year when Ryan Day is at Ohio State and Brian Hartline is in South Florida would be a big problem. Here's something I thought about Brian Hartline. I think he's a good position coach. The two worst offenses since Ryan Day has been at Ohio State as the head coach were when Brian Hartline was the OC. 2023 and 2025. People look at Kyle McCord and say Kyle McCord was bad. Kyle McCord was X, Y, and Z. I don't want to sit up here and say Kyle McCord was the best quarterback Ryan Day has ever had. No, I'm not saying that. I don't put all the blame on Kyle McCord. Maybe some of y'all do, and I get it. But when there's one common denominator between 2023 and 2025, and both teams had the same OC, and one of the weirdest offenses this past year was one that didn't really tap into their full potential, or maybe they did, and it wasn't what Ryan Day said, was when Hartline was calling the plays. Really good position coach. Great eye for talent. I don't really think Hartline is a great offensive coordinator. Hadn't proven that yet, and I sure hope he does a better job as a head coach, because if not, the USF fans will not be happy. Actually, message one when Hartline took the job, and they said they were nervous about him taking over, and I get it. I understand. Never been a head coach before. USF's getting a new stadium, going from the Raymond James Stadium that they've been in for a very long time. I understand their nervousness, but maybe him being head coach will be just fine. I don't know. I have no idea. The Buckeyes don't need more defensive ends or D tackles or linebackers, corners or safeties. Like those positions are fine. Really, to me, the only thing I would say, O-line and kicker, those are the only spot, and punter. Buckeyes only have one kicker right now on the roster and one punter on the roster. So you do need a kicker, a punter, and an offensive lineman. All three positions are for depth. You're going to be just fine. Ryan Day's approach with the portal has really helped the team when it comes to winter workouts hit the ground running. You're not bringing in guys that are very inexperienced or haven't been at big time programs, know the grind of the off. No. You brought in guys that know the grind. Ohio State's grind it might be a little bit different, but you know the grind. You know what to expect. Which has off to Ryan Day and the other coaches for getting things done, especially when there's no offensive coordinator. There's still uncertainty about the future of Matt Patricia, where I think Patricia's going to stay. I'm leaning more towards him staying. Now, as there's more coaches being hired in the NFL, it may be more enticing for him to go back to that level of football. But I think the longer you draw this thing out, the more I am leaning towards Matt Patricia staying at Ohio State for another year. Where when he made that post on the IG, I was like, oh, he's gone. He's gone. That wasn't just a thank you for the season. It was thank you for the season and my time at Ohio State, because I'm going to go off to the NFL where I want to be. Where I would love to be right now was in Miami Gardens for the national championship game, but I am not. I saw some pictures from some of my high school classmates that are down there in Miami getting ready for the game, and I'm happy for him. My guy, Dan Jones, dealing with some serious medical issues right now, so I'm happy for him and his wife. Name escapes me right now. We went to high school together. Sorry, bro. Forget your wife's name, but happy for them to be down there. And I wish I could go to the game. But the one thing I could do about the game is just predict what I think is going to happen tonight, and that is another Hoosiers win. Miami is good. I underestimated them when the game against Ohio State, because I thought Ohio State was going to play better and cleaner on offense than they did. They clearly couldn't block Miami. They were not better than Miami that day. I have no reason to believe that Miami is better than IU based off the things we have seen through this point in the season. Miami is good. They earned their way into the playoff. There's a controversy there. But the Hoosiers don't make mistakes. Fernando Mendoza has more touchdowns than incompletions in the playoff. The offensive line has been blocking their butts off. The run game has been solid. The defense has been busting heads. Now, Miami's defense, their front has been really, really good and strong all playoff long. Carson Beck, however, will occasionally give you opportunities to capitalize on his boneheaded decisions. May it be a bad throw, may it be a bad read, whatever the case may be. Carson Beck is going to make his mistakes. I mean, we said the same thing about Will Howard last year. Will Howard is not perfect. He's going to give you one or two opportunities to take the ball away from him. Will you capitalize on it? Well, I think it was last week or the last game in the Peach Bowl when D'Angelo Pons picked up the first play of the game and the stadium literally popped. I'm not saying D'Angelo Pons is going to have a pick six on the first play of the game in the Natty, but I would not be shocked if there was a pick six by the Hoosiers at some point in this game, and the stadium is going to pop. I got the Hoosiers winning the game by at least double digits. Not going to put a score prediction on it, but I have been a person that has said in college football, you don't have new national champions. You look at the history of this sport, especially in the BCS era and into the CFP, it's the same schools winning it. Clemson didn't win their first natty in the CFP era in the national championship game over Alabama. No. Bama didn't win their first in the BCS era. No, that was decades ago. Ohio State, same thing. Michigan, same thing. You don't have first-time Georgia, same. You don't have first-time national champions in this era of college football. That's not how this sport works. But IU is defying the odds and are going against the grain and throwing out all the normal narratives and storylines we would have surrounding a national championship featuring the Hoosiers and the Hurricanes. Signetti's been different. This team has been different. Mendoza's been different. There's no reason for me to believe anything but the Hoosiers will beat the Hurricanes and IU will win their first college football national championship in school history. I can't believe I said it. My mom will be happy when that actually happens. I'm sure she'll try to go to a Meijer or to an Academy or to Dick's Sporting Goods to try to get a shirt after the game or the next day because she is an IU grad and she is going to live it up, man. Live it up. She thought about going to the game, but she saw them tickets, the prices of tickets. She said, "Oh no, no, no! Oh no, no, no!" She is gonna sit at home on that couch that she bought, on that house in the house that she bought, and watch that game. Like many of us will be in the Midwest watching the game, enjoying some good food, some good company. And I'm pretty sure you might be like me, thinking that the Hoosiers will beat the Hurricanes in the national championship game. What is your thought about this game? Who do you think is going to win? Leave it in the chat right here on this video. Thank you all for tapping and Locked on Buckeyes and for making this show your first listen of the day. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked on Buckeyes so you get all the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked on Buckeyes ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. And that's basically a big group chat for Buckeye fans like us to talk every single day. Head to lockedonbuckeyes.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen Locked On College Football. You can follow me on any social media platform at jstevens07. Send every email to jstevens317@gmail.com. This has been Locked on Buckeyes on a Monday. I hope you enjoy the Natty tonight.